Scorpio is the feminine temple of Mars. It's seeking to bring up from the depths, our depths, our collective depths, all those primal, instinctive desires and drive. It's that part of the dark goddess bringing up the destructive or potentially destructive forces that are laying there at the depths in the dark. It's the Nigredo, the alchemical blackening, where our egos are drowned in our unconscious. Who and what we believe ourselves to be is swamped by the realization of these primal instinctual desires and drives. Then we have Cancer, with Jupiter exalted, trying to bring the purpose and meaning, trying to bring down spirit. The soul's being rebirthed here in Cancer. It's being channeled through this world, both individually and collectively. There's fertility here, having that meaning and purpose through marriage, home, family, the land, our connection with nature and its cycle, our roots and ancestry, that goddess wisdom. It's the albedo, the whitening, purifying our desires and drives by bringing fertility and connections back as we embody our true desires, the totality of who we are as we move out into the world, in our relationships, our connections to nature, to ancestry, and to our lineage. Then we have Pisces, which is trying to unite the both, the above and the below, the heights and the depths, the dark and the light, the destruction and the creation, spirit and matter. Pisces wants to unite spirit and matter. It's the Conjunctio, the alchemical wedding, bringing unity within and transforming us individually and collectively into co-creators. What could be better? So we're going to explore this through the lens of shadow, fertility, spiritual union, and what it means for you as an individual and the collective. Think about where in your life are deep instincts surfacing and how are they asking to be transformed. So Scorpio, it's the feminine yin temple of Mars. It is the deep, it's our instinctual primal desires, our urges, and the deep instinctual drives that we have. So it's our fears, our fear of death, of harm, of destruction, and that need to protect ourselves and create safety. Our deep instinctual desires to procreate, whether that be physically, as in children, or creatively with whatever we're doing, whatever we're creating, that wild animalistic side of our sexual desire and nature. It's our intuitive desires to have that meaning, to have purpose, and but to actively pursue these. They're here in Scorpio. We often ignore those instinctual primal desires and drives for the socially acceptable, the niceties, and we do that at our detriment. It's our conditioning. But these are our unconscious. Our ego does not survive our unconscious urges and drives. We either acknowledge them, work with them, and create something beautiful, or we're kind of on hair triggered reactions to things straight from our shadow material that lies in the depths of Scorpio there. And the other thing, we have Samhain coming in a few days. And what's this? We'll have access to our roots, to our ancestry, to our lineage. The veil is thin. So our memories can come up here. It's not just thin for the ghosts and ghouls and ancestors. It's thin here in terms of our unconscious, of that darkness. And our memory can come up here. And we can have that connection with our ancestry, with our lineage. But we can also have source spirit meet us here. But unless we unveil and acknowledge those deep primal instinctual desires and drives, we'll be met on that more superficial level by spirit. This is why Nigredo is so important not to skip over. Let's have a quick look at Nigredo. It's Latin for blackening. It's the first stage of the alchemical process, both in the practical laboratory of the ancient alchemists and in its spiritual or psychological interpretations. It represents the beginning of transformation, often through dissolution, decay, or confrontation with darkness. And we are talking about the water trine, so we're looking at dissolution. So in traditional alchemy, Nigredo is a stage where matter is broken down, putrefied, or dissolved. And as I say, it's water, so we're looking at dissolution into its raw, chaotic essence. Blackening of the material is often symbolized, as I said in my last video, by decomposition, but it can be black crows or ravens, the black sun in esoteric traditions, and dark, chaotic matter. So that it's like the void, the essence of pure potential here. This decomposition is essential because nothing new can emerge until the old form is reduced to its primal substance. It's the death that precedes rebirth. And Scorpio is the death card for a reason. So that newness, putting the old into the new, it reminds me of that quote, I think it's from the Bible, that says you cannot put old wine into new wineskins. It's that sense of dispensing of the old in that respect. So the psychological and inner alchemy interpretation, and that is highly influenced by Jungian psychology. Nigredo corresponds to the dark night of the soul, or a confrontation with our shadow, with the shadow. So that often requires facing repressed emotions, traumas, but particularly our ego structures. We can experience confusion, despair, or a loss of direction. It's breaking down the illusions about ourself or and about the world. It's the inner descent where the psyche is stripped of superficial layers, allowing authentic transformation to begin. Jung saw it as the necessary part of individuation, the process of becoming whole. We can look at the myth of Inanna, who descended into the underworld and was stripped of her regalia. That for me is an image and a metaphor for the stripping of ego. Grado, the role of it in the alchemical process, it's not the end, it's a beginning, and it's followed by Albedo, which we'll talk about in a minute, whitening, the purification, clarity, and illumination, citrinatus, the yellowing, awakening, and the dawning of an inner light, that treasure in the darkness, and Rebirth, which is the reddening, which is complete integration, completion, that philosopher's stone you often hear about. So without fully undergoing Nigredo, the later stages that I've just mentioned lack depth and true transformation. So, in our modern spiritual practice, people experience Nigredo when a major life structure collapses: career, relationships, identity, death. It's that death, death of a loved one can make us enter that dark night of the soul. Or when we go into therapy and spiritual work and we uncover that deep shadow material, old patterns die to make room for more authentic ways of being. Although it's very uncomfortable. You can't pretty this stage up, but this stage is sacred. It's the fertile darkness, it's the cosmic womb from which the new self will emerge. So here in Scorpio, having had a look at Scorpio and the Nigredo, the purpose of the water in the blackening, what have we got? We've got instinct versus control. This is what we can work with. That dark goddess energy rising, those destructive drives surfacing, both personal and collective. So collectively, we can see it at the moment intensely with the wars, the wars globally, the extreme violence that is going on at the moment in the Middle East. we can see the conflict between people all over the world, the left and right polarity. We have a lot of that destructive energy, the energy that pulls apart, to reflect on. Notice where power dynamics in your life are happening, what your instinctual urges are, what is surfacing there. This is your Nigredo. This is what spirit is bringing up to be dealt with. So, in conclusion, for the Scorpio and the Grado part, what we are talking about is that part of the dark goddess bringing up the destructive or potentially destructive forces that are laying there in the depths and in the dark. That is Scorpio. Scorpio is fixed autumn. The dark is dominant here. It's the Grado, the alchemical blackening, where our egos are drowned in our unconscious. Who and what we believe ourselves to be is swamped by the realization of our primal instinctual desires and drives. Mars, strong in his temple, bringing all this to pass, all this dissolution of ego to pass, is in the most beautiful trine to Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter here is in his exaltation. So he loves Cancer. It is where the light is. He is bringing fertility there. He is bringing optimism and hope. He's bringing that sense of home and our lineage, our ancestral roots, and meaning and purpose. Cancer is the place where soul descends into matter. And Jupiter, exalted here, is trying to bring the purpose and meaning, trying to bring down spirit. The soul is being rebirthed, it's being channeled through this world, both individually and collectively. There's fertility here, having that meaning and purpose through marriage, home, family, as I said, ancestry, lineage, roots, our connection with nature and its cycle, our roots and ancestry. Jupiter is in the moon's temple. That is, he's in the goddess's realm. So it's that wisdom of the goddess that is being brought to bear here. So home can be our sacred space. It can be our creative space, both through the procreation of children, but also our creative projects, our crafts, the things that we love to do. Our special time with our families, that nurturing of the connection, nurturing of our soil, our home soil, the soil that we want to bring growth into. It is an absolutely beautiful picture. And it's here in Cancer with Jupiter that I see the albedo. It's the Latin for whitening, purification, the second stage of the alchemical process following Nigredo, which is the dark night decomposition and dissolution of our ego. Albedo represents the purification, illumination, and the dawning of clarity. It's the washing away of impurities, a rebirth into a more refined, receptive, and luminous state. It prepares us for the last stages of citrinatus, the yellowing, and rubedo, the reddening. After all that blackened matter has been broken down, albedo is that process of washing, distillation, sublimation, they call it. Through purifying, this might happen, the solucio, several times. That substance that we've had revealed by facing our shadow, by looking at our primal urges, is cleansed of that blackness. It begins to take on a white, luminous appearance. It's the clarification of the raw material of who we are, really, the separation of the pure essence from the dross. So as we see our shadow, there's a separation. We see what's us and what is conditioned, what we've repressed. We see the beauty of our soul, the emergence of something new and untainted. We can use that religious terminology, the baptism of the material. So psychologically, connected again to the Jungian psychology, it's that moment of insight, purification of the psyche, awakening of our inner life after the descent, after Inanna's descent to the underworld. So it's that sense of inner clarity following maybe the confusion, the grief, the sense of loss or darkness of the Nigredo, the blackening. It's a recognition of higher truths. As we do this work, we see the higher truths, who we are, we see our souls. And it's often accompanied by a sense of humility when we understand the beauty of that difficult process that we've been through. It's about the integration of that shadow, not through denial, but through understanding and acceptance. So if we've got desires and primal instincts of fear or animalistic side to us, how we're human beings, we can gain that understanding and acceptance here. So it's a more authentic sense of self that is beginning to take shape here during this stage. It's sometimes called the dawn of the dark night, where our inner landscape is washed clean. It makes space for that spiritual light to enter us. Albedo is that bridge between destruction and integration. And as I say, it precedes that yellowing and reddening, the unification, the awakening of our solar light, wisdom, and that unification of opposites. Without Albedo, the transformation will remain stuck in that void chaos, the cosmic womb, the chaos of all potentiality. So it represents the first real glimpse of the new self. So, how do we know we've entered this? It's a period of darkness or crisis giving way to that sudden clarity and insight. There's a sense of forgiveness for ourselves, for the mistakes we've made, for the damage we may have done. We all cause damage and destruction in some way, whether we intend it or not. And it begins to dissolve any sense of bitterness or shame we have here. So, meditation, therapy, spiritual work leads to that sense of lightness and inner cleansing. There's a shift from our ego driven control to a receptivity and grace here. It's often that quiet, reflective stage, like an early morning light after a storm, hopeful, gentle, full of potential, which is why I feel with Jupiter there, that optimism, that hope, and then that gentle, nurturing area of Cancer is part of this albedo with the whitening, with the purifying of our desires and drives. It's bringing that fertility and our connections back, authentic connections. As we embody those true desires, the totality of who we are, as we move out into the world in relationship, in connection, and our connection not only to ourselves and the people we love within our home, our families, our friends and communities, to nature and to our ancestry and lineage, acknowledging those roots, acknowledging we may have been carrying ancestral karma. Here we can have it purified, we can be transformed. There's that purification of our instincts through nurturing, through connection and ancestral connection, connection with nature, and our purpose. There's no greater purpose than to want to connect. That's just, that gives us meaning, whatever whatever floats our boat in terms of connection. There's that reclaiming of our roots, the home as spiritual ground, and the fertility of projects, family, our land, the cycles of nature. Have a look at or comment below, where does Cancer fall in your chart, and what do you define as home and roots? Drop a comment below about them. You can create rituals at home. We got this Samhain coming up, build an ancestral altar. Nurture your creative soil, whatever that is. It could literally be a garden or your home and family or a work project or any crafts you're doing. Nurture it. These are good things to do. And then the third part of these trines, the Grand Trine, is obviously Pisces and Saturn in Pisces. So with Pisces, it's a mutable sign. It is the transition period from the dark of winter into the spring. It's a sign of the two fishes pulling in opposite directions. And that describes, that imagery is beautiful for Pisces because it is that pull of light and dark, that pull of spirit and matter. Pisces is always tied up, literally in the fish, tied up with that struggle. It is like a mystical bridge bringing the above below, the light and the dark, the spirit and the matter. Saturn in Pisces is concerned with that real world where Pisces is often the creative, the artist, the poet, the songwriter. It's a lot to do with the arts. Saturn is to do with bringing imagination, vision, creativity into the real world to make it solid, to bring it into the material. He also may bring that limiting, that stop point of what has become illusory or delusions. We are trine with Saturn, and Saturn can bring excess and over exuberance and optimism. Jupiter will often bring, Jupiter will often offer more than it can bring. So Saturn will bring understanding of our limitations, whatever they are, with our visions and our imaginations and our dreams and that kind of otherworldliness of Pisces. This is the conjunctio, it's the alchemical union, becoming co creators. It's bringing spirit into matter. Saturn is really helping us here with that. He is almost like the balancing act of it all. He's bringing that wisdom in order for us to be able to bring our imagination, our hopes, our dreams, our wishes into something very solidly material. So we have that water dissolving the duality between spirit and matter, between our imagination and concrete creations. Pisces is bringing that spiritual awakening through the emotional depths of Scorpio and the emotional depth that Pisces can bring. It's that collective energetic merging of all the different parts of our lives into a unity. It's also collectively the hope of bringing some form of unity within a very conflicted, warring world at the moment. We can have that hope and we can bring that into concrete reality by becoming the change we want to see in the world. It's what we can do. We have to know our limitations, but we can do that. So, one of the things I would ask you is reflect on what happens when instinct, soul, and spirit unite in your life. When your desire for imaginative creation, that desire, what happens when you have made that concrete? These are good reflections to have on this Saturn in Pisces. How can you make your beautiful imaginations, your beautiful hopes and dreams and wishes become concrete into matter? How can you tie spirit and matter, soul and spirit and matter together? So if you have ideas or you've seen that happen, just drop a comment in the bottom. It's lovely to know. It helps other people. So let's have a little look at the chart here. You would have been feeling this transit since around the 23rd. Okay, so at the 23rd, Mars was 21 degrees of Scorpio, so it was applying to the trine to Jupiter. If we go on a little further, and here we have the exact trine to Jupiter, and it's 1 degree off the trine to Saturn in Pisces here. What is so beautiful, absolutely beautiful about this chart? It actually goes into the exact trine with Jupiter at about 6:30 in the morning, GMT. Now, when this happens, we have Scorpio in the first house. So this is the helm. This is where Mars is driving from. Okay. And it's the joy of Mercury. And Mercury's present here. We've got the illumination of the sun here. At that moment of the trine, Jupiter is in the ninth house. This is the house of God. It's the gateway of soul into spirit, but the ninth house is the house of God. So it's bringing meaning and purpose. It's in the superior trine there. It's filtering down meaning of our origins. This is philosophy. This is religion. This is all those big, high-minded thinking here. So it's bringing down the meaning of our origins, um, the divine and our ancestral through the goddess wisdom. Jupiter is in the house of the moon, the goddess, bringing that wisdom down. It's reconnecting us to our memories, to our true nature, where we emerge from. And it's working with Mars here in the first house at the helm. And that's our bodies. The first house is about our bodies. It's about our identity, our character. So Jupiter is there working with Mars as he takes inward action in that Scorpio to resurface from the depths. Our primal instinctual desires. This is about us and our identity, our passions, fears, our deep drives. It's a gift of clarity, a moment of illumination with the sun there, and messages from the deep with Mercury there. And we have that Saturn in Pisces there. It is in the fifth house. And the fifth house is the joy of Venus, and Venus is one of the triplicity rulers of water, along with Mars and the moon. So this is sitting here, as I said, bringing the real world into being. So Venus is strong at the moment in the chart. It's not in any aspect, but she's sitting in her temple here, her temple of Libra, having just, a week ago been in that new moon, and she's wanting to bring here harmony. It's her exaltation here. She wants to bring harmony. She wants to bring balance, beauty, truth, and justice from there over in Libra. This is what this lunation, we are in this lunation, and Venus oversaw it. So Saturn there in the house of good fortune, this fifth house, it's a place of fertility, of creation. As I said, the joy of Venus, she's exalted. So we have this beautiful, beautiful trine. It is bringing all the things that we need. And this first house where Mars is, the fifth house where Saturn is, Pisces, and the ninth house where Jupiter is, as the exact conjunction happens, is Dharma. The first, fifth, and ninth is Dharma. It is the purpose we were born for. So this speaks really loudly to us. This is why I've spoken about fertility, creativity, about our identity, about meaning and purpose. The ninth, the house of God, joy of the sun, joy of Mercury, joy of Venus. It's our Dharma, the purpose we are here for. And I believe this water trine, particularly with Mars, who rules that first house there, Scorpio, it is to set us on fire for our purpose. It is to bring us into our true purpose, bring us into our true meaning. So you would have been feeling, as I said, this Mars transit, this building of this trine, but the exact trine's on the 28th. This is the period of time, 27th, 28th, 29th, when the things that Mars wants to do in your life, the urges, the drives, the desires, will come up. They'll be there for you to work with. Absolutely, you'll be able to work with these. What I want to make very clear is these processes will be happening between now. Obviously, they started with the Mercury activation, which was the 24th of October, and now the Mars with that exact trine being on the 28th. But these processes, these alchemical processes, will be continuing. It won't be finished. It's Mars part at the moment, but all the planets, the Mercury will return here several times. We'll have the sun activating the trine, we'll have Venus activating the trine, and Mercury will finish it off on the 6th of December. But these processes will be continuing, but I think it will be most intense, the Nigredo, the blackening, the kind of what I've described here this week, this whole week. So be open to work with that, okay? So Nigredo, shadow work. The shadow of Mars being so strong here in Scorpio, there can be conflict, aggression, anger. There can be obsession and jealousy, um, passions that have become too hot. So, whatever comes up for you, work with that. Ask the questions that I've said to ask, ask, what is this? What is it doing here? How can I work with this? It's got to be a conscious working with those energies. Okay. Mars is active, it is to bring action, it's a young energy. It wants to go down. So work with that energy, work with the shadow aspects that come up that you recognize. There's treasure there. There's absolute treasure, but they won't all be happening all at once. There'll be an intensity of the Nigredo. It may be that you go back to that as the sun comes and illumes more, and Venus comes and highlights your relationships and your connections and your love life more. So be open to that Nigredo happening. But what will happen is that albedo, the Jupiter in Cancer, that albedo will be funneling into it, as will Pisces with Saturn there. So it's a lot. It's that big triangle of energies coming at us. Why it is such a huge transit. So with albedo, Nigredo is looking at the shadow, accepting it, embracing it, working with it. And with albedo, we have grounding. We need to ground here in this purification stage, in this solutio stage that might happen over and over. We might need, or what comes up in shadow might need a lot of washing. Okay. I know it's happened personally for me. I've had to have a good old washing on numerous occasions. It never ends, really. These processes don't end. They're just intensified and working in that beautiful ease and flow. So they'll be very noticeable at the moment. So grounding, do your meditation, get out in nature, get your feet on the ground and nurture your soil, the soil of your work projects, of the things you love, your family, your home. Nurture that soil. These are grounding. Get out in nature with your bare feet. I think I've already said that. And go and gaze at the moon, albedo. Look at the changing faces of the moon. Look at information about the moon. Shortly after that exact trine, there will be a first quarter moon with the moon in Taurus and it's exalted there. And that can bring struggle. So go out and sit under that moon. Ask the moon, what do I do now? How do I manage this? Okay. Because the whitening, although it's nicer, it's it's not without its challenge, and that will be kind of coming up around that first quarter moon. You will really see what has come up, and you will be able to work with that, to purify that, to integrate that, to begin to integrate that. And with the conjunctio, this is really about looking at the opposites, the things that we're in opposition with, whether it's outside or inner, how are we working with those drives? It's got very dark in here. I'm going to turn a light on. I've just realised, sorry, people, I've been sitting in the dark. Just work with them, okay? See how you can pull things together, see how you can unite. And one of the biggest things we can do to bring union is to just acknowledge and be aware of the polarities that sit within us, our desires or our obsessions or jealousies or our anger, because when we're aware of it, we can then choose. That conscious awareness brings a point, it gives us that breathing space to choose the way we want to um, work with it. It is a transformational time. It's an arc of transformation from that instinctual shadow to spiritual co-creation. It is resetting of the collective of the Dharma, the purpose and meaning of the collective. Reflect on that. Reflect what the overarching in your community globally. How do you want that, our world to look at? It's the Dharma, the purpose of the world, what we are collectively about. It's transformational. Carl Jung, who is the genius of shadow, said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your heart. And until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you'll call it fate. So there are many, many reasons to open and do this work. And we are particularly supported now. So share below in the comments, how are these energies showing up in your life? If you're working with them, any tips for us all? That would be good. And if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, or if you want to delve into your shadow or explore this transit in your chart, I do shadow readings, soul journey readings, and obviously astrology readings. All right, then. Thank you very much. If you got this far, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.